My name is Joe Minicozzi. I have a small urban analytics firm in Asheville, North Carolina. Today I'm going to talk about what we do, which is basically unpack the math of cities. So we have understanding what a city costs. What does it cost to make a city happen? With that, where does your city get the money to pay for that stuff? And how does it all add up? And why is this important? And one of the things that's going to kind of strike you is why more people aren't doing this. You guys might want to slide over. There's like a lot of stuff over here. You don't need to see it, you need to look at the screen. So Asheville. This is where I'm from. The one thing that kind of strikes me is how few people understand what a city is at a basic level, at a legal level. And so here's Asheville. It's up in the mountains. Who's all been to Asheville? All right, cool. It's a tiny little town, about 90,000 people, in this unbelievable setting of the Smoky Mountains. Home of bluegrass music, beer. We've got like 25 breweries or something stupid. There's probably one happening right now. And like any quintessentially quaint little mountain town, we have men dressed as nuns on tall bikes that eat fire. Typical little place. Asheville wasn't always great. Harry and I worked together in a firm, real estate development firm called Public Interest Projects, a for-profit firm, and we used to joke that our motto was, "That'll never work here, don't even try." You know, for those problems that you all go through in your towns or any place that you practice, the lessons that we heard from John earlier, this kind of Greek choir that shows up, it doesn't want to be urban somehow, right? And these are the state of the buildings that were left in downtown by the time the 1990s rolled around. Julian Price founded the company where Harry and I worked. It's called Public Interest Projects. 75% of the money goes into the sticks and bricks. 25% was reserved to start businesses and seed entrepreneurs. So the first vegetarian restaurant, nightclub, a couple of restaurants, things that needed to happen at the ground floor. There were people in the community that could make that happen. Typical stuff. This is a rehab project before and after. These are 400 to 600 square foot units. So show of hands in this room, who would live in a 4,600 square foot unit? Okay, about 10%. Let me change the question. Who in this room has lived in a 4,600 square foot unit? That was the marketing study. So basically we're told it never worked, no one ever lived in these things. And it's mostly because people ask the question from their position in life, rather than understanding what cities are. What was really key about public interest projects is bringing the information out. Putting the data out to the community so they could really understand what was going on, constantly making the argument for what we do in real estate development, and why does it matter for everybody else in the room, right? So why this is important is because of the politics of what was going on in Asheville at the time. This is the growth of the Central Business District from 1991. So you saw those boarded up buildings. This is what the downtown was worth as an asset in 1991. These first two steps here happened just by doing historic preservation. Just by fixing what was already there. Getting those upper stories active, basically, right? Y'all follow me? Just to show you the politics of Asheville, these are some of the campaign ads. This is this guy, Chris Peterson. I love Chris's work. I love taking him around the country. You guys are priceless. You can't make this stuff up. Chris led the charge against the downtown's investment. So you have parking garages, some streetscape projects, $26 million of investment. Follow me? They got $26 million in their pocket or anything? No. I mean, it's expensive. That's a lot of money, right? Downtown development for bureaucrats instead of water, sewer, and streets for our citizens. That's the way Chris saw the world. Now, let's do some math here. If you invest $26 million into a $100 million asset, and it grows to $500 million, is investing $26 million and having a $400 million return on investment, is that a good ROI? Why do we listen to Chris? But again, this is the thing. Put that data out there. Let the community see, is he right? I think he's wrong. The numbers show it. So one of the things that kind of strikes me about this is how little we understand cities and how they operate. This is actually a kid's book that I found at a garage sale called The City, the Town, and the Country. It's a book from 1959. It's a third grade book teaching us about cities and regional planning. In the book is a teacher that tells you how to deal with your third graders. How your third graders understand cities. And I love this paragraph right here. Remember too that many children, whether urban and rural, and regardless of region, are tragically limited in their knowledge of their world, and their world is largely the space in which they live and operate. Third phase. So the same applies for adults, right? How many times do you hear about, I don't have a parking space? It's about my life, right? Your city should reflect the way that I want to live in it. It's this tragic limitation that I want to dwell on for this whole entire presentation. How do I make this stuff obvious for people to pass their invitations? So, and we heard the presentation, we heard from you about the businesses, how the city operates as a business. Well, the city is a business. If we just look at Oxford American Dictionary, here it is, incorporate, constitute a company, a city, or other organization as a legal corporation. Anybody pay taxes in this room? We are all shareholders in corporations. I don't think anybody in this room isn't paying county taxes, right? It's another corporation. So the city is the finite boundary of land. In our case, in Asheville, it's a legal trust annex. So that's it. The land that we have is the acres that we've got. So how those function is critically important. The cash flow on those acres is necessary. My town is worth 4 times the dollar in value. We're $12.8 billion of real estate investment. He's got meat on his stick right here. This is the Iowa State Fair. Evan, I want to get you one of these hats. So I mean, think about that. Your city, this is only a city of 90,000 people, and if it were a Fortune 500 company, it'd be in the top 200. Y'all get that? I mean, I have friends that are on city council. I mean, no offense to any elected officials in this room. They win a popularity contest. We're running a multi-billion-dollar corporation. That's how it works. So I want to let this is the prep to why we have to run the numbers. If you have a corporation, you need to understand the costs, you need to understand the revenues, what you're paying rent, what kind of income comes in. So if I were a developer building this godforsaken place somewhere, this is actually in Arizona, if I built this, I mean, we heard from John, I've got soft costs, I've got hard costs. You've got to add all this stuff up, put your profit on top of it, divide it by the rooftops, you're good to go. If your revenues exceed your costs, you stay in business, right? Y'all follow me there? That's real estate development 101. When the city gets this thing plugged down the street right here, y'all send out your chief financial officer to figure out the cost of all the service costs, the cost of all the roads to get out here, and do you send them a bill for those costs? We tax you on value. There's absolutely no connection between the cost of our development patterns and what we pay in taxes. We just hope that it all works out if we put a millage rate on top of our value and then hope that the budget works out. Think about running your business that way, for those of you that have businesses. It's a wild guess. So I'm not the first person to come onto this idea, it's actually this guy. Did y'all know that the Nixon administration published this document called The Cost of Sprawl in 1973, where they actually ran the numbers? Pick it up. I got this for $17 on the internet. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's neat that he goes through it. It gets a little weird. It's the 1970s. It gets into the emotional cost and all that stuff. But it's a nice place to start. So I know that like Lafayette represents half this room here. It's great to see you all. Lafayette figured it out. And Mayor Joey Durrell, a business person, took the political risk of putting the numbers out there. And we've been actually working with some incredible staff, and Carly and Kevin, and all of y'all. It's been amazing to work with them. Lafayette understood that they were in trouble. And I have to give Carly the nod on this one. These are awesome. They figured this out in 1994. This is the cover of the budget document from 1994. The finance officer was sending a signal to the community. Like, hey, yeah, this wave's going to hit us, and the shark's going to eat us. We're screwed. And sending the signal to the politicians to make the tough choice. So what the politicians do, they kick the can down the road. The next year, the finance officer was like, yeah, did you mention how screwed we are? So here's the parish is essentially going bankrupt, and their only way out was to grab the city. So it's like the Titanic going down and grabbing the little dinghy that was next to it, and they did a forced city-county merger, and everything's wonderful. So when I was going through this, I asked the folks at the government, I said, well, so what did you do? Did you just fire the graphic artist and go to clip art? Like, what did you do to save money? they kept the same development pattern, hoping that would work out, even though they're taking the city down with it. So they figured it out. They said, well, we need to do the math on this stuff. We need to show what's going on. So first, let's go through what's spent. So you have things that are geopositional. We know where the bridges are. These are things called coulees, the drainage canals, the sewer lines, buses. We can put that stuff on a map. There are things that you shouldn't count because everybody has to, the city attorney, or the parish attorney, Mr. Hebert, everybody should have access to him. So when you're running the numbers on this stuff, focus on what's important and be accurate. You don't have to be precise. You just have to communicate to the audience what's going on. Did y'all get this? Just make it simple. So water, they're in the bayou. They got a lot of water to deal with. This is Josh. I work with Josh. We were really excited to visit the coulees. This is our first coulee visit. These things are really expensive. They have to send somebody down here, rub it out. There's a cost to all this stuff, and if you don't have land unless you drain it, right? So that's an infrastructure cost. This is a distorted model to show that they're not pan flat. And you can see that there's areas that are higher than others, so you have areas that are less expensive than others. So basically everything's got to flow into the Vermilion River. You've got a topo map, easy to get. There's a ledge essentially through the community. So this is the least expensive to drain versus other areas. And we made a drainage map. It's like a mountain range. We're mountain people, so we have to see it this way to see what's going on. So if I dump a glass of water right here, half of it goes into this coulee, half of it goes into this portion. So then we can then take the coulee cost of this one district, which is actually this is one of the most expensive ones here. It's moving as much cubic volume of water as some of these larger ones. So we can put a coulee cost in here and send a bill to everybody in that district. So it costs to live in your neighborhood, right? So we did that. There's infrastructure, pipes. These are all the pipes in the community. Let's just take a couple people. I flush my toilet. You flush your toilet. We both have to get to the treatment plant. You should get a little piece of that. Yeah, I've got 3,500 feet of pipe, and you've got in a lift station, and you've got 900 feet of gravity feed. So why is my per gallon flush the same as yours? It seems kind of odd. Again, we have the technology to map this stuff. We have the technology to put the data out there and analyze it. Here's the other crazy thing. 55% of their community is in clay pipe, which all needs to be replaced. That's old stuff. More than half of their community. What I'm basically doing is painting a picture of the crisis that they see inside city management, that they understand is going on. Pavement. It's amazing to me when you can sit through engineering models, they're just like, put another wider lane, whatever. It's like, this stuff costs a lot of money. So this is their system. People use the system differently. So there's some roads that carry more volume, more capacity, more people should pay for them. This doesn't really show too well. This is taking all of their roads and making them one massive parking lot, which is this big black square right here, and hovering it over Manhattan. That's Long Island, this is Manhattan, this is New Jersey. It essentially fills the New York Harbor, or it's about twice the size of Venice. So they have to fix roads. Like if you were to make one huge parking lot, twice the size of Venice, or here's New Orleans. This is the French Quarter. This is the Lafayette Street UFO hovering over New Orleans. It's a lot of surface area, right? You got to fix this stuff. When you build a road, it doesn't just magically fix itself. We sat down. Is Lori here? Did Lori come? No. We sat down with the head of finance. Lori is Torres, right? Torres? Tubes. And Lori's awesome. And it was kind of funny because she was using the CAFR standards. And the CAFR standards, when a developer builds a road, if I build a road and give it to you, they put it in an asset column. And I was doing this project with Chuck Marone, and Chuck asked the obvious question. He's an engineer. He's like, well, you have to fix it, right? Isn't it a liability? And she goes, no, this is the CAFR standards. We put it in the asset ledger. And that's where it sits. And I held up my computer and I said, Lori, this computer depreciates, but at the end of the day, I can sell it to you. Can you sell your streets? She goes, no. Chuck goes, that's a liability. And the light bulb went off. She's like, why don't our standards reflect this? And again, it's just the siloing of government. She's perfectly right within her profession. But the professional standards that the GFOA make, these CAFR standards, that she puts these things in these columns, and she's a competent professional. Kevin has to pay the bills for all of this stuff, right? So 16% of that road system are in these little danglers, these cul-de-sacs. We call them publicly funded and maintained driveways. I mean, this guy's even parking his trailer on it like it's his personal driveway. So just go ahead and cut those off. 16% of that road system, 16% of 6.5 square miles. That's a lot of surface area. And for those of you that work in transportation, you understand the problem. They disrupt the network. So you have, these are two cul-de-sacs here, a little dark. When I was out in the community, I saw these school buses driving around. They spend $20 million in school bus transportation. This is a school bus with a 3-point turn in a cul-de-sac. So that bus will drive into this cul-de-sac, drop off the kids, continue on another 3/4 of a mile, come down 3/4 of a mile, and drop off kids in this cul-de-sac. And the cul-de-sacs are literally 66 feet apart. This is a cost that's being put into the system because of what people choose they want. So the developer's like, hey, I can get a better price point if I put a cul-de-sac here. People that live there are like, this is great, I have no traffic. But they've externalized that cost into the community. You now have more miles of wear and tear on that bus, you have more surface area of transportation, and you've lost the benefits of the network. So just put that cost into the mall. If you want to live there, great. I want to be 6 foot tall and have a full head of hair. That would make me happy. I think y'all should pay for it. That's what's going on, right? So the other thing that's kind of crazy about the roads, this is the old city limits, here's the county parish limits. So inside the system, indeed, there's a finer network of roads. There's more road surface area inside the city, about 2/3 of the road surface area of the city. This is the rest of the parish. But when you look at the budget, the city's paying for the majority of the roads. So that's one easy tweak. Let's just go ahead and make them match and charge the people out in the parish more for their road system to make it at least equilateral. You know, so I hope you guys don't mind that I put this in here. I found this kind of amazing. What's the reaction in the community when we come in? This is actually the reaction from one of what I thought would be a supporter of ours, somebody at the more conservative side of the political spectrum. And his name is Jared Ballard. He's running for council. So rather than say, oh, wow, these guys are doing math, they're figuring out the cost of this stuff, everything's going to be fair, this is his reaction. I believe the differences in opinion of council are not a matter of geography, but a matter of principle. And I love that he bolded this. It's not where you live, it's what you believe. Like I said, I believe I'm 6 foot tall and have a full head of hair. Sooner or later, I got to walk by a mirror. You know, this is the tragic limitation in people's understanding of this stuff. It's gotten to a pattern of faith, belief system, rather than actual functionality of the city. So Kevin's reaction to this, and Kevin, I got to give you this quote. I actually use this a lot now. This is Kevin's quote that was in the newspaper. There's no such a thing as an infrastructure fair. I love that. Here he is. He's also the world's greatest public works director. Just stopped building streets today, which is here we are in 2015. They haven't built streets for the last couple of years because they're broke. This is what broke looks like. This is the revenue that you have to pay for the streets. That's taking 60% of the retail sales, which is how Lafayette and Louisiana, most of Louisiana, pays for your infrastructure, the capital projects. Let me ask you a quick question. Does that blue look like it can catch up to the red? So by the time you get back here after you fix your streets, you're starting the cycle again. That's what's going to happen. So basically, put simply, they're going to have a massive economic collapse in 2056. They're already experiencing it right now with the rehab of the first 50 years of streets that they've built. Does that make sense? Now we're being fair. We're actually saying it's a 50-year replacement reserve for the streets. The folks in Lafayette, the people who actually build the streets, say that they've got about 35 years. So the crisis is actually going to be bigger than this. So the other thing that they've done, here's where they were in 1950, 33,000 people. They had 5 feet of pipe and 2.4 fire hydrants per 1,000 people. They're now at about 121,000, so yes, they've grown in population, but they've expanded their pipes by 50 per person and 51 meters per 1,000 people. So they've grown their population by 3.5, their infrastructure system by 10 and 20 times. Did y'all get that? So that's the cost. Getting your money. Buildings are crops sitting on that land, sitting in that asset that produce taxes, right? So this is a building, actually, Perry was a major part of this rehab. $300,000 of value, and now it's worth over $11 million. This is the streetscape project that Chris complained about. So Public Interest Projects got a gift of a garbage can that I grabbed 2 benches of a street tree, about $25,000 worth of stuff here. Now this building went from $300,000 of value to $11 million of value, so that grew by 3,500% in taxes. Anyone have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? So this is an asset that just shot through the roof. And people say to me, like, well, Joe, that's fine, it's $11 million. We've got this Walmart over here at $20 million, which is impressive. Walmart pays $221,000 in property taxes. Okay, this is my house. These are my dogs. My dogs think they're lions, they're a little weird. But we pay $2,000 in taxes for 1/10 of an acre. So if a 1 acre cookie cutter fell from space and hit my neighborhood, it grabbed 10 houses, $2,000 a pop, or $20,000 an acre. Take that 1 acre, float it in space, drop it on the Walmart, divide its tax bill by 34. This is what you get. And if you had an acre of our building downtown, this is what you get. So I was presenting this in Colorado a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to make it simple for people in Colorado. I said, look, if that acre of land, what are you going to grow? They got it. So you're probably saying, hey, Joe, this is Lafayette, we're a retail state, or Louisiana, this is a retail state. So let's go ahead and remove me, and let's run the numbers on retail. Now Walmart sells about $77 million. Our city gets a portion of that. So 27% of 8 cents on the sales tax dollar, $77 million sales, or about $47,000 in retail tax, add to it property tax. Now this is the total number. This is just our property tax to the city. You add our retail tax, you're cooking with gas, jobs per acre. How do y'all want to look at this? You know, if you want to talk about urban design, just let the numbers do their stuff. We even have 90 units an acre of residential on here, they're at 0. We built this pattern for tens of thousands of years because it makes sense, economically, environmentally, in all forms of working in cities. So this is what's, the data's there, just do the math. That's the city side. As you know, we also look at cities sitting inside counties. This is the average county tax per acre to my county that somebody inside the city pays. This is somebody out in the county. We have a very hostile county brothers and sisters. One of our state legislators actually called us a cesspool of sin. And then, you know, I was on the board of directors of the Downtown Association. Everybody's like, oh, why did he do that? And so they sent the reporter up. His next quote was, well, I don't mean that whole county. There's some good people in Martin County. It's just that downtown part, that's where the fruits and roots are. Thanks, guy. So yeah, we threw a cesspool party. You know, we had water, wings, and drinks and beer. I guess that's the only way to deal with it. But anyway, here's the mall. Here's residential. You see, by somebody do a mall at $8,000 neighboring county taxes. Let's not stop here. Here's downtown. This is our building downtown. Here's the mall. So what we find is what's good for downtown is great for the city, but it's unbelievable for the county. And when has the county come in and done a dog park in our downtown or a streetscape project? So they're getting all this revenue, right? So, I don't, you know, John said that I'm good at math. I'm actually not. I just use 5th grade math. It's division, right? It's real simple. Don't be intimidated by it. So we do this already. When we talk about cars, we don't talk about cars on a miles per tank basis, do we? If we did, we'd all be driving Ford F-150s at 650 miles per tank. Instead, we say miles per gallon because that's what drives the cars. We also understand every tank is different sizes, right? Miles per gallon, the numbers change. That's the whole magic that I'm doing here. And so we should all be driving BMW that says 70 miles per gallon. I've yet to find a community where a gallon of gas costs more than an acre of land. So if we're doing this for a $3 commodity, we should be doing it for the $30,000 commodity. Y'all get that? Go back to your community and do a per acre analysis. Realize these are the relentless rules of humble arithmetic. It's just doing math on this stuff. So we can take the city and with GIS technology, move it out of the way here. And I want to just throw this quote out from Ian McCart. He even says it in Design with Nature. Money is our measure. You know, so we've got, you're probably not going to see this in the dark here. That's the infrastructure. On the infrastructure, people follow with building buildings on that infrastructure. And then we map the ologies, hydrology, geology, the earth and the man-made, right? We can do that. But we can also split this and map the economy. I want to show you three-dimensionally what's going on with your economic system. So we'll go to Asheville. This is my county. Here we have non-taxable. This is a big park right here, so it's all no tax. Green is low tax production. or low taxable value. Purple is hot property value. This right here is over $74 million worth of value. That's the Biltmore estate. That's America's largest house. It's also sitting on 8,000 acres of land. Who's got 8,000 acres? Anyone? So, you do? Patty? So it's not fair. So when you go from the map of total value to per acre value, the map changes. I'll just show it to y'all in 3D. Can y'all tell me where downtown might possibly be? Just take one wild guess. Boom, right? So that's the value. Just let the community see what's going on. If you just lay the millage rate of the county's taxes across this like a bed sheet, you'll see where your potency is. Did y'all follow me? So Durango, we were in Durango last week. Here's the entire La Plata County. You can see where Main Street is in Durango. It's only 3 blocks long and 1 block wide. It pops up like a mountain right there. Retail sales, Colorado, the cities are heavily retail driven, actually pretty close to what you all are stuck with in Lafayette. So here's a breakdown of all the states and how they operate at a municipal level. So combined city, county, what's in property taxes in red, retail taxes in green. So here's Colorado, and here's the retail taxes. And this is Louisiana right here. So Louisiana is like over 50% retail tax driven. The same principles apply. So here's Durango, the downtown versus South Durango. South Durango is where the mall and the Walmart is. This is property taxes. This is the retail tax production. So their little downtown is still killing it. Again, just let the numbers speak for themselves. And then this is the total tax productivity. Here's jobs. So that's it. That's what's going on. This is downtown compared to South Durango in total retail sales production. So downtown's almost as much production, about $1 million less. Actually, $700,000 less. Less county taxes in total. But here's what's crazy. This is the footprint of the corporation of the two. So downtown takes up 87 acres. This is what South Durango takes up. And then here's the total production. So if you just added 8.8 acres to downtown, that's still less than 100 acres. It would be as productive as the 1,000-acre South Durango. So if you're trying to talk about the effect, why you should go down the road doing an urban project or fixing your downtown, this is what you get out of it. Retail sales over time, we thought, well, maybe downtown's doing so well because it's adding more stores or something. Here's what downtown was producing. Here's South Durango here. So basically, South Durango is about 120% of downtown. Yet through the recession, and here we are today, downtown has grown. But what's crazy is it's actually starting to catch up with South Durango. Yet when you pull the data to see how much square footage was added, this is how much was added to downtown, and here's what was added to the South Durango. So even though South Durango got close to 300,000 square feet of new commercial, downtown is still catching up to it. Did y'all get that? Is this too nerdy for after lunch? You guys are getting really quiet.
We're listening.
So how do you add it up? This is one of the fun things we're doing with Lafayette is basically, okay, Joe, you've got the cost, you've got the revenue, now let's see how it nets out. So we're following the cash flow of money. So here's their model. You can see downtown here. And then this is their new urbanism project called River Ranch. This is the entire parish. Under the model, we sent everybody a bill for their infrastructure. So this is the side view of the model. And you can see everybody's costs and bill that we sent them. And like any business, you want to net your revenue against your costs to see what's in the black and what's in the red. Here it is. And then this is the entire parish as a 3D model. We call this picture the parish is bleeding for obvious reasons. You can see where they're hemorrhaging money in the cost of their infrastructure versus what people are paying in taxes. Again, I'm agnostic. I just want to show you what's going on, show you your economic MRI, and let you make a decision. If you just drop this whole thing on the floor and let everything pop up, this is what it pops up to. So you can see where you're getting your revenue, and then you've got this ring of costs around you, some of which are worse than others as far as their subsidy. And it is indeed a subsidy. When you're not paying for what you're consuming, that is called a subsidy. So if you're taking this much of a subsidy, and I'm not charging you for it, what do you think the consumer choice is going to be? Think about it. Of course I'm going to choose this pattern. So when people say they want that suburban pattern, what they're doing is they're actually taking advantage of an economic break. Y'all get that? So what's crazy about it is all of that is driven by basically the stormwater system is the biggest expense, is the easiest to map. In addition to that, the roads. And this is for the folks that I bumped into earlier at the MPO. We actually modeled your MPO map. And one of the things that's kind of crazy is you're actually projecting no growth in your downtown, yet you're projecting a lot of growth into these areas that are actually driving you the most growth. So this is something where you have to get an alignment with the city. You can't afford this stuff. Y'all get that? You find this with a lot of MPOs, they actually project that, oh, more people are moving out here. So therefore, that's to use your term about obesity, it's like fighting obesity by buying bigger clothes. You're going to widen the lanes out there, which is going to drive more people out there because it's going to be induced demand, and you're going to go further and further down the hole. Did y'all follow me?
Yep.
So they bought all this infrastructure, and one of their arguments is, well, Joe, you don't understand, we have all this oil money, we got rich. And they did. So here's the infrastructure. They went from a household income adjusted to today at about $28,000 per household in 1950. Today they're at $45,000. So though they've increased their infrastructure by 10 and 20 times, they've only increased their wealth by 2 times. What they're doing is they're following the American paradigm of how we buy things. Their problem is put simply this: if you just froze the music and just take a look at the cash flow, if their average house is worth $150,000, their average tax bill is about $1,500. Of that, what actually matriculates to the roads is $150. If you do a reserve account for all the roads, that you're going to replace them every 50 years, let's set aside money for your consumption of roads in a little bank account for you. This is what you should be setting aside for your road allotment. Y'all see a problem? That's just the roads. There's stuff under the roads, right? That's another $4,000. So the average house is upside down $7,000. The pain that the municipal government is feeling in Lafayette Parish is this pain of we don't have money to pay for all this stuff. You have to show that to people. We basically have this habit of, like, let's say I got a $1,000 raise. I shouldn't go out and build a 10,000 square foot addition on my house. Yet with cities, we do that without thinking through that economic cost that's going to come due 20 years from now. So how am I doing on time? Keep going. Why does this matter? In Chattanooga, we did their map across the river. There was this this Publix grocery store developer from Atlanta wanted to do a conventional grocery store. So here's the site. They had mixed-use buildings. They had an urban grocer. They had townhouses. And basically, the mayor was making the argument, like, let's get rid of these urban design guidelines. They're in the way for this conventional development. So here's conventional development. They already had Publix in their marketplace, so we know what those look like. This is office above residential retail. This is residential above retail. This is the local guy did this. It's called a deep throat model grocery store where you have the box, then you have a liner building on it. And Publix has done crazy things before. This is the Miami Beach Publix parking on the roof. This looks like a UFO hit it, but it's like stacked up and dense. This is a small footprint Publix in West Palm Beach. It's 2-fronted. You've got a car entrance, you have a pedestrian entrance. So Publix has done urban examples before. The site has 34 foot of grade change here. So we just made a really crude Google SketchUp model. So apologies to any designers in the room. I made this model and it sucks. It's a really bad topo. But I wanted people to see really quickly, all these houses get to look at this tarmac of a roof. Here's your 1/4 mile long graffiti wall right here, because they're cutting into a hill. But we're also running the taxes. Now, don't worry about that, I'll come back to that. So if you just do Urban Design 101, you have housing facing housing, put a couple corner buildings down, call it a day, boom. Do better site design. This is where you do what the local guy did, move the building up against the street, ring the site with mix of uses. This is what you get. Go crazy, do Miami Beach. You've got 34 foot of grade change, just drive it up on the damn roof. This is what you get. Back it down to West Palm Beach, small footprint, big parking lot. And then a no-build scenario where basically you piss the developer off, he goes back to Atlanta, you don't get a grocery store, you just get what's already happening in the neighborhood. So let's recap. Here are the taxes currently paid. Here's what the developer's proposing. So the mayor is indeed right. He's getting 3 times the taxes out of the property. But this is how you do an opportunity cost. If this is indeed an opportunity, you have other opportunities here. So what's the choice cost? This is if you just do 101, Urban Design 101, you get $154,000. Do a better site design, this is what you get. So Steve, this is when you say the value of good design, there it is. This is, if you go crazy, do Miami Beach, back it down to West Palm Beach in a no-build scenario. Y'all follow me? So if you just take two of these and say, what's the net benefit for both of these? Here's what they look like, here's the cash annually. That's not a fair way to look at them. When we make this decision, we're stuck with it for 20 years, at least. So really you need to net this forward to today, take all of those dollars and bring them forward to today. Here's what it really looks like. So why would you go for a $600,000 gain when you could have millions of dollars? I mean, heck, you could reach in your pocket, hand this developer $2 million and say, please do this one. You'll still be ahead of the game by $2.2 million. So one of the reasons why we're broke is we've done decades of just allowing me as a developer to come into your community and underbuild. You've got all that infrastructure, you're not charging me for it. So put real simply, the cheaper and crappier the building I make, the lower the taxes I pay. That's it. Sorry to wake you up with that, but that's how our system works. So when we accept this, we're basically foregoing the money for the greenway, the art teacher, or the dancing traffic cop. Y'all got a dancing traffic cop? You do? Okay. It's probably expensive. So, why is this not more common? Part of it is, as we heard this morning, we just don't measure this stuff. We're not looking at it, it's hiding in plain sight. Lafayette Parish is worth $16 billion, which is more than the professional sports teams in the state combined. It's about, 16 Saints? And I can guarantee you that the owner of the Saints knows Drew Brees' towel bill. And I can tell you the cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. You need to know these things. What's the street cost in your community? That it has to be the tip of your tongue when you're talking about development patterns. And you need to understand the behavioral economics that are going on and why developers are choosing what they're doing. And there's some really crazy games back there. This is one of my favorites to explain. You've got two values in your land. You've got your value of your dirt, your value of your building on top of the dirt. So we'll go into the model, just turn off the buildings, and just look at the dirt value. And you expect the world to be like this. Everybody in the neighborhood's got the same value per acre of dirt, right? There's no buildings on it, it's just the dirt. When I was presenting this in Cheyenne, Wyoming, I was asking, what's going on here, where this is 15,000, and as soon as you cross the street, it jumps up to 35,000. How can land double in value by crossing the street? And the same, oh wait, you don't understand. And I said, try me out, what am I missing? She goes, well, the more land you have, the lower the value. The mayor just about spat coffee on these things. And I said, well, where'd that come from? She said, well, that's our standard. The more land you have, the lower the value. I said, well, I've got 3/4 of a mile of street here, 3/4 of a mile of street here, another half mile and half mile. I've got 3 miles of street around this thing. I've got 200 feet here. She goes, yeah, we don't count infrastructure. Okay. I've got the ability to put more stuff here. You all can clearly see this is a bigger site, right? So if I put a bigger stuff here, it's probably going to have more trips. More trips mean more car accidents, mean more fire calls. She's like, yeah, we don't count any of that. It's our standard. The more land you have, the lower the value. So I went to the International Assessing Officers Conference and presented this. Their magazine is called Fair and Equitable. And I asked them, I'm like, how is this fair or equitable? They're like, it's not, Joe. And I'm like, where'd you get the standard? Did Moses deliver it to you? I mean, where'd this come from? And they're like, we don't know. So for those of you that work in zoning, you've seen this time and time again. You see these standards that are just buried in our zoning codes, and you ask, like, why do we have 2 parking spaces per unit? I don't know. So they just don't question their standards, and these things drive our cities financially. These aren't invisible market forces that are making me behave a certain way as a developer. I am taking the path of least resistance. So in Normandy, you were taxed on your building footprint for about 100 years, and people started projecting out over the street to avoid the taxes. In England, you were taxed on the number of windows you had, so people started boarding up the windows to avoid the taxes. In France, what was below the roof line or above the roof line wasn't considered part of the building. So it wasn't like there was a master design guideline that made Paris. It was called a tax loophole. The architects started shoving stories off the roof. That's the way it works. So you have to realize that policies can hurt you, and you have to put the gun down. So do the math. Thanks.
Any questions? A single question. Nobody's against the math? All right. All right, we got a couple questions. What's going to happen next, by the way, is Alton Jones is going to be our next speaker. So I don't know if you want to come get ready, how you need to get ready for the computer. We'll do the question then. All right, Patty, you had the first
It's
one.
not really a question, I just wanted to, I got in late, did you do the, look at this thing, how many
No.
shapes? You're not doing that anymore? I love that. No, I loved it when you did it, I don't want to,
Dude, I love sitting through your demo. Why don't you play that anymore?
You know, it's like his greatest hits tour.
well,
To
it's what,
sing that
it
song.
teaches a lesson that you measure, what you measure, what you're expecting to measure, what gives you your answers.
Yeah.
We got a question.
So I don't have a question either, actually. I just wanted to share, I serve on the city council in the city of Eugene, and Joe came to speak in our city maybe 6 months ago. And since then, we got our city staff to do some of the mapping. So for me as an elected official, it's very powerful stuff, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Just made my mom. Thanks.
We got a question over here.
I want to copy it.
Hey, I'm in Ashtabula, I was just there 5 days ago. Do you have some interesting anecdotal story about the Grove Arcade and like before and after values and all that on that lovely landmark?
Actually, the gentleman sitting 2 people in front of you could probably tell you the deeper story. I've only got the back end of it. That was a project that our company was going to be involved with up until the 11th hour, when the city was going to provide parking as part of the public parking concept. And then, and I don't know if Harry can correct if I get this wrong, but Pat tells me, the president of the company, that the city, on the day of the council hearing, they're like, what if we change our promise to making the garage happen to, we will make it our best effort to do that. And essentially, that was a bad relationship from our end of the deal. That project ended up getting flipped into I want to say, was it Duke Energy or Progress Energy? On tax credits on that, made it happen. The city did actually do a good job with that. The outside little booths and vendors, they've been really working to try to develop its pattern. The top floor is residential, second floor is office, and the rest is retail. It's a pretty complex project, but Harry probably knows more about it than I do.
All right, we've got a question over here.
I just have a really quick question. How do you deal with park space and, other public space when you're doing this out there?
Yeah, there's a couple of criticisms that I typically get is, Joe, you want to have skyscrapers everywhere, and Joe, you don't like public space. If you actually look at our models, you'll see that there's usually, it's not really our models as much as it's just a reflection of what's actually going on in the community. You'll see a ring of value around well-designed parks. I like to think of it as, this is my really crude real estate 101. Real estate's essentially a big stick of butter, right? Now, if you have the hand of God that comes in and pushes down in the middle of the stick of butter, it creates an ocean. That value doesn't disappear. What happens is that value just rises up around the edges. Now, if you do something like Seaside, where you say everybody now has access to that edge, rather than just one condo, and the model is reflected in the architectural type if you just drive up and down the Florida coast, right? You see this tall skyscraper. What Seaside did is they extended that value horizontally. They dragged that value further into the butter stick. So you can do the same thing with parks. There's actually a great paper that I can email you. John Nolan wrote it in 1913 on the value of open space in Cambridge, where they did an economic analysis of what would happen to the community of where people had access to parks. You don't lose that value, it just gets transferred around.
All right.
Thank you very much, Joe.